Hey, what's up, everybody? Video 44 coming at you with another video. All right, so before we even start the video, the Laker game is Monday. It is not Tuesday. At the end of my reaction to the Golden State Warrior game, I said that our next game against the Thunder was at 7 p.m. on Tuesday. It's not 7 p.m. on a Monday. So that's the very first thing I want to say. Apologize to anybody who may have saw that video but not this one and took my word for it. I hope that's nobody, but it's possible. The game is not on Tuesday. The game is on Monday. The Lakers basically play every other day to the All-Star break. So we don't play a Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday. Hope everybody enjoys the game if they watch it. We play Monday. So that's so important. The Lakers did a few things, or one thing that I did not report on last night. We signed Kobe Buffkin to a 2-year deal, team option on the second year. Filled our 15th and final roster spot with Kobe. I'm a big fan of Kobe Buffkin, and I like what he does. It's never, my criticism of this move is never going to be about Kobe Buffkin, the player, or the contract, because I actually like the contract. I think it's a sound decision. I think as it pertains to making sure we have a team option, we've done a horrible job of making sure we had player options with this particular player. We had the leverage to give him a team option, and I think if we give him the right role, we can feel great about that next season, or, if he doesn't play well, we can move on from him and it won't be him dictating terms. So we're sick of team player options as a franchise. We've given them out like free candy at whatever. But at the end of the day, this situation is a good contract for us, especially if we can play him into a good role. Problem is, I don't know that we can play him into a good role, guys. That's my concern. This is one of those situations where it's a pretty bold gamble. It's one I would do in most situations. I don't know that I would actually do it in this one. And I know how well Kobe's been playing in the G League. He had like 48 points a couple nights ago. He deserves to be in the league. I don't think he was ever really a G League talent. I just think he, like a lot of guys, get drafted to the wrong places. He got drafted to Atlanta. Atlanta obviously had Trae Young and a bunch of other guards. They did not need Kobe Buffkin. He would have been better suited elsewhere. He ended up in Brooklyn. Brooklyn's Brooklyn. Plus, he had came off, I think, some type of injury, so he wasn't necessarily in his best shape in Brooklyn. Now he has an opportunity to have worked on his conditioning. He's in great shape. He's with the South Bay Lakers. He's balling out. We gave him a 10-day. He did not necessarily impress with that 10-day, but what I did like about Kobe Buffkin is how we were able to slot him in different roles. He's tall enough and big enough of a person to play some small ball, 3, 2, and they think he's a natural 1. And a huge big-time scorer. We did not see him play good ball for the Lakers, but we did like the glimpses of what he could potentially be on the defensive end, which is not the side of the ball you hire him for. So I was extremely encouraged anyway, because I felt like I already knew what he could do offensively. He went back down to G League and went for like 100 points in the last couple of games. So does he deserve this opportunity? Yes. I just don't know that the Lakers situation is currently constructed is the best one for this situation. I don't know that he showed enough in our group to make it so that we're giving him our final 15th roster spot. And I think that our options in the buyout market probably are a bit more rich than maybe we anticipated. I think there's a decent chance that Portland could buy out Thibault. I think there's a decent chance that Portland could buy out Robert Williams. Cam Thomas is a Laker fan, which I didn't know until yesterday. It would be his dream to play for the Lakers. I don't know that you bring him in at this point because we just brought in Kennard. They kind of do the same thing, kind of play the same position. I don't think you double down necessarily on that. I don't think you necessarily need to do that, not when you have other needs. But the point is he's probably the highest level player out there, and he's in love with the Lakers. He's a Laker guy. He grew up a Laker diehard, like all of us. So he would have been listening to us first. He probably still wants to be a part of our situation. But I don't know that from a roster standpoint you necessarily can use him anymore. not as much as you could probably use a Hayward Highsmith. Although Hayward Highsmith, the only problem with Hayward Highsmith is he hasn't played all season. He's dealing with a knee injury. So if he can't come in the second half of the season and be his best, I don't know that you're getting the most out of him. Now, if you bring him in now, and he does play the second half of the season, by the time the playoffs come around, he could potentially be a player for you. But what kind of role do you actually expect him to play in the playoffs? I've seen Hayward Highsmith play well. He can be a hell of a defender, hit some corner threes. But him coming in off injury, I don't think it fills the void that we necessarily needed to. If he's 100% healthy the way he was with Miami, yeah, I think he could be great for us in a role. But him having not played all season and then coming off the couch basically for the Lakers right now, I wouldn't really feel that great about that. I don't feel that great about that. Now, his conditioning could very well be tip-top. You know, that's something that Austin said a few days ago. When people are injured, it's not like they're sitting on the couch doing nothing. Sometimes they're working harder because they have to get their body in shape, so it forces them to be more consistent with their conditioning than they otherwise would. And it forces them to do more exercises and different exercises than maybe they would if they were healthy. So, for all I know, Hayward Highsmith has been working on his conditioning the entire time and can't wait to get back out there to show that. I don't know that that's not the case. But I'm just saying, based on my limited understanding, that he hasn't played since basically the 2024-2025 season. Asking him to come in and be an intricate wing for us is probably asking him to do too much. So that's the only thing that's keeping me from being on the Hayward Highsmith train. But I do think if the Lakers signed him and he looked his best, we'd be getting a hell of a piece. Because he's still young. It's not like this guy's old. So, do you see what I'm saying? The Lakers have options, man. There are other players out there that could potentially be bought out. And the thing about it is, prior to this week, I would have said, of course, you just buy out Maxi Kleber. The way Maxi's been playing over the last 2 games, though it's a small sample size and it's a bit short-sighted to look at things this way, I think it wouldn't necessarily make the most sense for our franchise to waive Maxi Kleber right now. Now, if they did that, I would understand. But when you're asking a guy to earn his spot, I think he's done that. I think he's been very intricate to us winning these last 2 games. Does that mean that I have all the faith in the world that that's the role he's going to play through the rest of the season and into the playoffs? I don't necessarily have that type of confidence in Maxi, but that doesn't mean that over the last 2 games he hasn't made me feel really good about his minutes at center. And given the fact that we are a team that has limited center depth, I don't think we should be waiving him at all. So, not based on what our circumstances are and how he's looked over the last couple of games. So, again, I'm a believer in Kobe Buffkin. I'm happy he's here. I want him to stay with us. I think it could be a smart investment in him. I've been on record saying that it's a good idea to invest in players at a comfortable for team price that you believe could turn into something. I think I was referring to Drew Timme when I said it, but the same would have applied to Kobe Buffkin. I wouldn't have disagreed in regards to Buffkin's case. I just wonder about a few things as it pertains to whether or not those opportunities will be there. One of them, J.J. Redick. How much time do we expect J.J. to give Buffkin in the second half of the season? You know what I'm saying? When you look at what JJ's been doing, obviously we removed Gabe Vincent, who's a point guard / shooting guard, who he was somebody who's going to eat up 18 minutes a night, and that was kind of limiting the minutes that you would expect to get from Bronny, from Smith, and potentially Buffkin, in theory. So, yeah, are we more likely to see JJ turn to one of those guards than he would have prior to the trade? I think so. But what you did was insert Luke Kennard, for which I'm extremely happy about. I think Luke Kennard's basically going to take all those minutes. So you still got the same dynamic. Now, Luke Kennard does some things differently than Gabe Vincent. And you don't look at Luke Kennard as a ball-handling guard, which means that even though you've brought yourself a player that you would expect to eat those same minutes, they may be more roles for the guards than when Gabe was in place. You know, Kennard is more of a pure 2. Gabe is an undersized 1-2. You know, you expect Gabe Vincent to fill in at the point guard a bit more than you expect for Luke Kennard to fill in at point guard. He's not a ball handler, so it gives you more of a use for Smith, Bufkin. So it slots the roster differently, but it does still make it so that you have a guard in place that could potentially eat those minutes. Luka's obviously, Austin obviously out there, and a lot of what we were assessing was minus Austin. So when you look at what the team's been for the last month and what the team's needs were, it was minus a whole ball handler. A whole ball handler that's going to eat up 30 minutes a night. So it's like, how much of a role do we have for a guard when you have Bufkin, you have Smart, you know what I mean? You have Austin, and obviously your team is built around Luka. And of course, LeBron James also ball handles some, even though he struggled with ball handling this year, ironically enough. He's still LeBron James, so it's like he's going to straighten himself out regardless. I just don't know that you had a role for Bufkin to justify giving him the final roster spot this season. Now, if it was the only way to keep him in the organization, then it seems like a sound investment for our future. But it's only a 2-year deal, so it's like, okay, he's on for the rest of this year. I assume that means next year would be the team option. So if for some reason you don't like what you see at the end of this year, you can let him go or pick up his option, if I have that right. Unless it's a 2-year deal starting next season, but then that doesn't make sense because he signed on for the rest of this one. So I'm not really sure how that works. But whatever the case may be, Bufkin is likely to have a bigger role next season. So to be best, you would hope that this contract would start next season, and then you would have the player option for the following season, or the team option rather for the following season. Ideally, because you understand that Bufkin, with the role that he has this season, likely won't even hardly play. So that's my concern. And then from there, it's like the role that allows for him to be the 40-point scorer. I don't see that being something that we ever see on the big team unless we have some significant injury issues, which would make us a terrible basketball team. You need Austin and Luka to go down. Or you need Marcus Smart and Austin to go down in order to potentially see Kobe Bufkin get that role. And so, like, the only way you get the most out of Kobe Bufkin in the short term is if your timeline gets altered by significant injuries, which then makes your team an entirely different thing. If we're preparing for something like that, then this is sound. But if we're preparing to make the playoffs and we try to be a playoff team, you really do have some needs that you need to fill your roster spot with. And you're probably going to have to waive some people that you don't want to waive in order to do so. Do we waive Smith since we're not using him? I don't want to waive Smith for the same reason I don't want to waive Bufkin. I think they're both super talented. I'm happy they're both here. I want them both in my backcourt running with one another. I don't want to move Smith. Are you moving Drew Timme? With our center issues and with his ability to run the score up, I still think he is an underappreciated scorer out there in this league right now. I think people are underappreciating his offensive talent based on his athleticism deficiencies, which to me is a bit dense when you consider some of the most talented scorers in this league have not had a whole lot of athleticism. Luka Doncic's not very athletic. Dirk Nowitzki was not very athletic. You know what I mean? So just a couple guys come off the top of my mind. He's shown me that he's a hustle guy and can run it up, can shoot from all over the place at a high clip. I actually want to see a lot more of Drew Timme. I really do. I think he's more naturally talented than, say, Jackson Hayes. I think he may be more capable than Maxi Kleber. Though those guys bring things to the table he doesn't, he brings things to the table they don't. So it's like, I think you can play Drew Timme at the 4. I think he's a good enough floor spacer in situations and is a good enough try-hard guy to run some 3 at times, although I wouldn't necessarily put him there. You can get away with it for a couple possessions if you have to, in theory. So it's not like he's defending anybody at any position. That's not what you have him down there for. but he does try hard on defense, just like Luke Kennard. So it's like, for me, I want to see more of Drew Timme. I don't want to move on from Drew Timme. I'm not trying to waive Drew Timme. The same impressive stuff that you saw Kobe Buffkin do in the G League was the same impressive stuff you seen Drew Timme do in the G League. So it's like, I already know what these guys can do. They're here for a reason. We're happy they're here. We don't want to move on from these people. Like, I think they got a role on this team going forward, personally. But, you know, the reality is there's a lot of talent out there unaccounted for, which is why NBA expansion is so necessary. And you're always going to find guys that you're excited about that deserve to be on an NBA team. You got to be able to understand what you can bring to yourself. This is what I'm saying. A lot of the time in regards to the Lakers, we got to know what to bring to us. If I got control of the Grizzlies, then I can, of course, take a chance on Kobe Buffkin and Drew Timme and all these guys, because I'm going to have a role for them, rebuilding. If I'm the control of the Wizards, yeah, we got roles for everybody, because ain't nobody trying to win around here. But if you're trying to win, some things that you really, really like, you have to leave alone so that you can bring yourself what you really, really need. Or so that you don't bring your stuff that you really like to a situation that you can't best utilize it in, and loses its value from there, maybe breaks its confidence, like connect. And there's a lot of things that can go wrong, and you bring a good thing to a bad situation for itself. And so this is what I'm concerned about. We've made this mistake several times, where we take a guy who's balling in the G League and then bring him to the Lakers to get 2 minutes once a week. I mean, we've seen it a lot, man. And this is what I'm talking about. It's like, I love that we have an eye for good talent, but there's always going to be more good talent out there than roster spots we can provide. So you end up giving away stuff that you can use for stuff that you believe in that could turn into something tomorrow. And you just got to know how to stay on track as it pertains to what your goals are. And I just think that we kind of have wandering eyes when it comes to, ooh, I like that prospect. Can I get him on a great contract? Cool, all right, I can get him here. Yeah, but remember, you're built around 3 guards. You're built around Luka, LeBron, and Austin Reeves. So if you have a guard prospect that you absolutely love, that you think is going to be a superstar one day, it could be a nice gamble bringing him to you if you can hold on to him for a couple years, and then you lose these guys for whatever set of reasons, and he steps up and becomes that. That's when the gamble pays off. But it's a lot of things that can go wrong when you do that. And only 1 or 2 things that could potentially go absolutely right when you do that. And so that's what I'm thinking right now. I'm the guy that told you guys that I thought Kobe Buffkin would be potentially great player someday, good player someday, all-star level guy someday. But I didn't think we could get him. That was my initial point on Kobe Buffkin. I said, I think he's going to be good, but I don't think we can actually get him because we have to do other things in order to acquire him. And then I don't think we have the role for him because we're literally built around Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves. And we brought him here. And I'm happy he's here. But what is here? Here is LeBron James, Luka Doncic, and Austin Reeves' team. So do I really have the role for a developing guard? And the answer is not in the short term, not necessarily in the short term. In the long term, if I'm projecting him to be a career backup, absolutely. In the short term, he's going to have to play the bench and sit and watch and clap and slap hands for a young guy. That's tough, man. That's tough. When you look over at A.J. Johnson and he's getting minutes with the Dallas Mavericks, you know what I'm saying? You look over at certain teams and you see young guys in their same position, their same caliber in real roles on developing teams. It's a tough thing for guys, man. You look at Dalton Connect and how much he's struggling over here, and you look over in Brooklyn and see a role where he can probably get like 25, 30 minutes a night. You're not bringing them to a situation where they can effectively succeed, man. And that's my concern with what we're doing with young prospects. You know what I mean? That's my concern. It's like we're bringing ourselves young prospects as if we're a rebuilding team, And you know me, that's right up my alley. I believe in young players. I'm the guy that gives a young player big minutes in a playoff game. I ain't got no sense when it comes to that type of stuff. I just believe young players can produce most of the time, and when they can't, then I can replace them with someone who can, because there's plenty of them. That's what I think of the talent that's out there. But at the same time, it's like, if I got a coach in place that doesn't think that way, doesn't believe that, and he's more likely to play guys who've been in the league for at least 6 years over anybody who's good, who may be 19 or 20 years old, then I don't know that I have the right situation to bring a 19-year-old that could potentially one day be a star, especially when the stars that I have all play his position. All play his position. And so this is where it becomes a situation where I ask the Lakers, are we self-aware enough to leave things out there that we may believe in had we had a different self to bring it to, so to speak? Because if my team was built to say like around Jokic, and let's say I'm building with the Denver Nuggets, then the only guard that I have in place that I truly love is Jamal Murray. I can bring myself young guard prospect A. You know what I mean? I can bring, you know what I mean? I'm gonna bring that guy to me, especially if he can play some two, because he could potentially play some backup one and some two. And even if he becomes his best self, there's a role for this guy on this situation, because my stars are made up in my power forward, center, and point guard position. So he's going to get his 30 minutes down the road. All he has to do is earn them and become that guy, and I can slap him right in spot. That's not the situation with us. We need to be investing in wing prospects and center prospects with that type of intensity, because we're going to have a role for them. If they become their best, they could be our starting center. You see what I'm saying? But we have an eye and taste for guards. Our whole team is built around a superstar guard. No matter how great the guard becomes, he's never going to be greater than Luka. He's never going to be prioritized over the guard we have in place. No matter how great he is, you're not going to want to play him over Austin. He got to damn near be Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan to play over Austin at this point. So why am I bringing myself guard prospects when the ceiling that they can get on this team over the next 7 years is backup? Like backup. You know, where are the center prospects, man? And I know the center prospects, in a nutshell, are not as plentiful. These centers don't have the highest of upside in a lot of cases, so it's hard to have a taste, so to speak, for center prospects over point guards, because it's a million point guards and ball handlers, and it's only a few centers out there worth a damn. I get it. But, it's the end of the day, that's what it is. You built your team around a point guard. You built your team around guards. And you only have so many guard spots. You know what I mean? And if you're doing things for the future, can you hold on to those guards that you bring into yourself? And then it's like, okay, Ron's son is a guard. Okay, you got a whole roster spot going to a young guard, young point guard, undersized point guard. And you keep bringing yourself prospects that are like him. Like, you know what I mean? They are in his role, role more or less. They're coming in to try to usurp his role or compete with him for his role. I just don't know if we get the most out of a young guard when you're bringing them to a situation where the star's a guard and then Bronny's a guard. You know what I mean? You got Marcus Smart in place just in case something goes wrong with the guards. Again, you know what I mean? If Bronny was not in place, then you could say, okay, this is my guard prospect, Smith, Buffkin. But you got Smith, Buffkin, and Bronny. And then a gaping hole at center. Like, guys that you would rather not start or even back up in some cases at center. So it's just, I don't know. I think it's an unspoken truth that Bronny's timeline with the Lakers is probably aligned with LeBron's timeline. And once LeBron leaves, you're probably not going to have Bronny. And I think that's kind of how people are operating. With that being said, I think we're underestimating what Bronny is as a player and what he could potentially be in this league. I've seen enough from Bronny in garbage times to know that he's not just LeBron's son, but he's a nice athlete and somebody who could potentially be a very competent scorer out there. I kind of want to use him more. I've been saying this, man. I wish this guy's name was Bronny Smith, so that people could kind of stop treating him like some type of mascot and start looking at what he's able to do. Because when he goes to the G League, he also does good things. When he plays in garbage time minutes, he can tend to do some good things. He's extremely explosive and all that. I just want to use him as a prospect because he's a young player. Him being Bron's son just means that he has the DNA of an athlete that a guy his size is likely not going to have, which makes him a bit of a unicorn. Guys his height are not going to be as explosive as him. Are we sure we're not overlooking Ronnie because of the politics that basically brought him to this team in the first place? Overcompensating for the fact that he's a Nepo kid with our thinking of what it is that he potentially should be worth to us as a player. I'm not making that mistake. I never made that mistake. So that's another thing. It's like you bringing in guard prospects. Is this y'all poking at LeBron? Since people are not really on the same page with all the stuff that's been released, it seems like there might be a little bit of a cold war between LeBron's side and the Lakers side of things. You keep bringing in guard prospects to usurp his son, letting him know that his son don't have a future with the team. I don't know if I should be reading into that or not, but he's been rather unhappy over the last couple of weeks. I've been reading into that much. So, I just think people have the right idea with what it is that they like. I like those things too. I like Smith. I like Buffkin. I have an eye for those players too. I just don't know that bringing them to this situation really is going to get the most out of them, make their acquisitions worth the sacrifices that you're making to other needs that you could potentially be filling. I don't know that you really need to be bringing yourself too many guards right now. I really don't. Buffkin being able to play some small forward definitely makes him a bit more likely to be utilized than maybe Smith. Or Bronny, but it does become a situation where at the end of the day, he's still a guard, man. He's still a guard. And so I understand that Marcus Smart could likely be gone very soon. Again, when you talk about future seasons and bringing in young players, those two things align a bit more than the short term. But some of the roadblocks in the short term could potentially make it so that you are not able to keep those kids to the long term. Till the long term, or however you word that. If guys don't think they can get the roles right now, their representation will likely move them on, or they'll likely not play well, and you'll probably lose faith in them. It's a lot of different things that could make it so that those players are not on your team for the timeline that you're ultimately bringing them to you to be there for you. So that's my take. I just think the Lakers took a real risk with Kobe Buffkin. I think he's a good enough prospect to make that risk acceptable, but I do think that it's a lot of things that can go wrong that can make that risk a terrible decision. And when you're in Rob Pelinka's seat, I don't know if you can afford, with all the criticism that people are leaping upon you, I don't know if you could afford to necessarily take this risk. That's what I would say to him. Don't overestimate the fact that you brought Luka to this team at the price tag that you did. Your job security. That's what I tell him. That trade was awesome, but that's not necessarily the entirety of what would determine whether or not you stay with this club. There are a lot of different things, different factors in place to where people could still move on from Rob Pelinka. And I don't know that he should be trying to bring himself another guard prospect on a guaranteed roster spot based on what all those things are. People start talking about, okay, you were Kobe's friend, that's why you got the job. Or you don't do you haven't made the greatest decisions upon getting this job, which we are still paying for now. And what's up with some of the decisions you made with role players and draft picks? There are a lot of things that were not so good. You doing the great trade for Luka Doncic is one thing, and it may count for a lot of good, but there's still a lot of stuff that people criticize him for that makes it so that he's somewhat in the hot seat anyway. And if he thinks that he bought himself rope to make a million more mistakes because he brought our team Luka, I would tell him I don't see it that way. I don't think that's what your circumstances are, man. I don't think so. I really don't. I think people have it very much in their mind all the stuff that didn't go right. Honestly, a lot of stuff didn't go right, man. So this is a big gamble that I would only make if I felt I had absolute job security. Absolute job security. And with new ownership in place, that is not what I would feel if I were in his seat. Not at all. So I don't know who you waive now at this point. I don't know who, I think the Lakers probably do waive somebody. Maybe it's Timmy, although I don't know what his contract situation is. I don't think he has a contract solidified with the Lakers. It's not going to be Bronny. I'm certain of that. Maybe it's Smith. I don't want to do that. Maybe it's Maxi Kleber. I think Maxi's earned his spot for the rest of the season. But I do think the Lakers, if they have an opportunity to get a guy like Robert Williams, if he gets bought out, that's something that probably we're responsible for doing based on our center situation. So somebody would have to go in order for us to bring in Robert Williams. Or, Matisse Thybulle I'm not as big on. I genuinely just am kind of out on the defensive guy that can't score. Matisse has been able to hit threes against us specifically. He had a game where he hit like 6 of them or something crazy like that. But I don't think Matisse Thybulle is very good offensively. And I'm just not the believer in the defensive guy anymore. I'm just not. I believe in rim protection. I like guys who can defend. But if they're bad on the offensive end, I kind of look at them like a lot of people look at guys who are able to shoot but can't defend. Like a lot of people are not happy with us bringing in Luke Kennard because he can't defend. I'm going to be mad that we bring in Matisse Thybulle because he can't score. You see what I'm saying? I look at those guys the exact same way. I don't put as much emphasis on pure defenders that can't score in today's league. I don't think they even have a place in this league right now. I don't think they can defend well enough for the stuff that goes wrong on the offensive end. And I made that case many times over the last 2 weeks. So, I'm cool. I don't want to do that. If a guy can't absolutely be good on both sides of the floor, if he's only good on defense, I'm straight. I'm absolutely straight on him. Unless he's a rim protector. Because that's a different thing. That's an entirely different thing. And an offensive rebounding force. If he can do those two things, cool. Otherwise, right now, if you ask me to choose between the guy that can score and can't defend or the guy that can defend and can't score, I'm probably going to lean into the guy that can score and can't defend today. Even for our roster, who can't defend. I just think you're more likely to be able to win a basketball game if you lean into your offense than if you lean into your defense right now. And that's not a perfect science. There's going to be circumstances where that's not the case. There's going to be cases where that's just not going to apply or that's just not what you're going to find. But I just think 8 out of 10 times in today's league, yeah, you'd probably be best leaning into your offense. I really believe that. So with that being said, I'm cool on Matisse Thybulle. I don't want to put another guy on the floor that can't score, but is some type of excellent defensive player, mucking up the game, making it ugly. Probably still lose the game because the other team has more talented offensive players in more positions from which to attack you. And that defensive player going to play great defense, and all he's going to do is call fouls on that dude. That's it. He'll play great defense, and he doesn't have cachet as a nice offensive player, and the referees are going to make him pay for it. That's what ends up happening. He plays that great defense. In the final second of the shot clock, they call a foul. And that great offensive player, Donovan Mitchell, going to the line. And all that defense goes to crowd. It's just not. That's not the world you're in right now in NBA. I just want people to understand that. because I've been listening to Jovan Buha. He's a big proponent in bringing in these defensive guys. Got to improve our defense. That's not going to win you the basketball game, bro. That's not going to win you the basketball game. Scoring is going to win you the basketball game. Defense is going to give you the fake comeback. The fake comeback is what happens when you put them big defensive players on the floor. You have a bunch of them dudes on the ground out there, you know what's going to happen? They're going to break the final couple shots. After doing all that stuff that gets them the easy buckets in transition, if you can't count on easy buckets in transition, they don't really do anything for you offensively. Because when it comes into a half-court setting, they ain't going to get no stops. They don't get called for fouls. That's the point. I know what this looks like. I see it in my mind's eye very, very clearly, bro. They may get 2 stops, but at 8 out of 10 possessions, they're going to send whoever so-and-so to the line, bro. He going to score. They going to score on you. And then you're going to go back down there with that non-offensive player, and your floor is going to be shrunk. Try-hard defense is going to – they're going to get stops with their semi-good defensive players and great offensive talent. Your guy's going to brick a shot because you got nothing but people crowding him out because they're leaving these defensive guys you left down there open. And you're going to not score as many points as the other team because you're going to have a cluster of those scenarios plastered into your fourth quarter, and you're going to lose. It doesn't work. Telling people this crap don't work. It don't work. This is not the time to be trying to boost your defense with guys who cannot score. No. If you want to have a good defense in this league, in my opinion, you got to have rim protection, and some of your core guys got to be two-way. Jason Tatum's, prime Paul George's, prime Kawhi Leonard's, you know what I'm saying? Drew Holiday's, Evan Mobley's, Anthony Davis's. You need those guys. You are not going to get away with having your team built around offensive-only guy superstars and then throwing in Vanderbilts and Matisse Thybulles and think you're going to have a good team. You're not. You're not, because the other team has offensive geniuses just like you do. And some of those guys can play defense. They don't need the patchwork offensive player on the floor, and so the roster didn't require them bring them people to them. So while you're dealing with Vanderbilts and Vanderbilt and Matisse Thybulles, they are Jason Tatum. They play both sides of the floor. They never had to bring themselves those people. As a result, they have more spacers on the floor. They got Derek White over there. He can play both sides. You know, see what I'm saying? They got Al Horford-like types over there. They play both sides. So it was never a need for them to bring guys who are one-sided on the floor, which leaves you at a deficiency that they don't have from possession to possession to possession. You can't build that way and expect to be able to fill in the one-way defensive guys to make up for what the offensive superstars can't do. You're not going to win because you're going to run into too many of them who don't have that problem. They're going to be able to get stops. They're going to be able to wear out those defensive guys, scoring over their good defense, drawing fouls and grifting on them defensively, getting to the line off of their good defense. And then from there, they're going to hit the shots them dudes didn't hit. Then from there, they're going to get the offensive rebounds off of their bricks. It's just, nah. If you're going to have offensive talent that can't defend, made up your superstars, it's okay to have a one Vanderbilt, one Matisse Thybulle. But no. If you think that you're going to be able to put multiple guys out there to make up for your defense, all you're going to have is a struggling offense and an average defense. Why is it average? Because you still got the one-way superstar on the floor with the Vanderbilt on the defensive end, leaving holes in your defense. That's what ends up happening to you. You can keep Thybulle and Vanderbilt out there all you want. There's still going to be 2 holes in the defense out there because your superstars on the floor who can't defend. Doesn't work. You do better to punt the defensive end, make yourself absolutely unstoppable on the offensive end when you're built that way. And then you have 1 or 2 Vanderbilts. You know what I'm saying? Get yourself a Mitchell Robinson if you can. But if you can't bring me Derek White and OG Anunoby's to fill up the roster, then you're going to be at a deficiency against the teams who do have those people. That's really what it is. And most teams don't have one-way superstars. They got two-way superstars surrounded by OG Anunoby's and Derek Whites. You're in trouble. You're just in trouble building this way, man. So this is what I'm saying. Like, if you go when LeBron bounces, you need to bring yourself one of them type of dudes. You need somebody who can play both sides of the floor, at the forward spot, at the center spot. You need somebody. You need a Stephon Castle type dude. You need, again, Derek White's at your guard spots, OG Anunoby. These are names that come to mind immediately on the wing spots. Tamani Kamara, although he's a bit more defensive than offensive, he still has plenty of offensive juice. Jalen Tyson, even some of these guys that are just coming into the league now, like Noah Penda, play some defense. Jordan Walsh comes to mind immediately. Dyson Daniels, though he doesn't really have a whole lot of offensive juice, he has enough to make it good for you. You know what I mean? These are the type of talent in the wing spots that you need to put next to your guys to give yourself a chance. Because if you're going with these one-way guys, you're not going to make it to the big dance. That's just what it is. And at the center position, I mean, you're going up against Wemby. You know what I'm saying? You're going up against Jokic. You're going up against, if Embiid is back, Embiid. You're going up against Alpri, Sengun, Zubats. These guys can all score like crazy against whatever defender you got out there, man. They still going to push them people around, bro. They're going to push these people around. They're going to score over them. They're going to stretch the floor. They ain't going to have no problems. That's really what it comes down to. So for teams who are building right now, don't think that it's harmless bringing yourself a bunch of one-way superstars and then think you're going to fill in the defensive guys to patchwork your defense. All you're doing is making your offense suffer. The defense is never going to be able to stop those super spacey teams with multiple two-way guys up and down the roster. You're not beating those teams at all. Not in this era. What you need is for those teams to dumb themselves down by moving some of those two-way players and bringing in more Mathibles and Vanderbilts so that it can be a bit more even for you. But as long as OKC exists, San Antonio exists, Boston exists, Toronto with all these two-way players they putting together, the stilts down there in Cleveland, you're going to have a difficult time, man. Guys like Peyton Watson starting to break out. These are legitimate two-way guys, man. You're not going to beat a team full of those people with a bunch of one-way superstars and one-way defensive role players. You're going to get your butt kicked, man. That's it. So that's pretty much what I got to say, man. I want the Lakers to really consider this. LeBron's going to be on his way out. Do bring yourself a guy who is known for playing both sides of the floor. If you're going to give somebody $50 million, make damn sure they can play both sides of the floor, because your other two superstars are not doing that. Austin and Luka are not doing that at all. So if you're going to make the roster feel around those people, the next $50 million guy has to be two-way, and the rest of your role players potentially should be able to score. Not be deficient on the offensive end, man. Definitely not be deficient on the offensive end. So that's my take on things, man. I would prefer everybody on the roster be OG Anunoby, Derek White, Wembanyama, you know what I'm saying? Drew Holiday. Who else is out there, man? Guys who can defend and score equally. Jason Tatum. These are the type of people, you know what I mean, that I think your team should have. Jaden McDaniels. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is the type of stuff you want. Shea Gildress, Alexander, obviously J-Dub, everybody on the Thunder, all the Thunder names, all of them. Holmgren, all the Thunder names. Castle. You know what I'm saying? You need guys who can do both, bro. And if you're only going to choose one side, in the era we're in, make sure it's in the offensive side, because the try-hard defensive dudes are just shrinking the floor on the offensive end and fouling on the defensive end. Their asses ain't winning nothing. video 44. I thank you all for watching.